Classification of organisms. All forms of life have characteristics that distinguish them and enable biologists to arrange them into groups. There are numerous varieties of organisms ranging from single-celled to big multicellular ones. To study these diverse forms of life, biologists have to place them into manageable groups. They do so by examining their distinguishing features and grouping the organisms accordingly. Plants and animals have varied external features. Some of the external features of plants include roots, stem, leaves, flowers, seeds, fruit and cones. Rhizoids and seta in moss plant. Fronds, sori and rachis in ferns. Some of the external features of animals include fur, hair and mammary glands in mammals. Feathers and wings in birds. Shells in snails. Sensory organs like eyes, ears and antennae. Scales and fins in fish. Proglottids and scolex in tapeworms. Tentacles in hydra. Locomotory structures like limbs in arthropods and vertebrates. Body pigmentation. What is classification? Classification is the grouping of living organisms based on their structure. Those with similar structures are put under one group referred to as a taxon or taxa in plural. The grouping also takes into account the evolutionary relationships, phylogeny, since all living organisms at one time had a common origin. The science of classification is known as taxonomy. Biologists who study taxonomy are called taxonomists. Taxonomy involves the placing of organisms into groups and assigning them names. Classification is necessary because of the following reasons. Grouping brings together living organisms with similar characteristics but separates those with different features. It helps in placing living organisms into their correct groups for reference. Classification helps us arrange the information about living organisms in an orderly manner to avoid chaos and confusion that would arise if this were to be done arbitrarily. It also helps us to understand the evolutionary relationship between different organisms. In early times, classification was artificial. Organisms were grouped based on a few observable characteristics. For instance, organisms were grouped into plants and animals. Plants were further grouped as herbs, shrubs. Plants were also classified as edible and non-edible, fungi, and bacteria. Animals were grouped into several groups, namely carnivores, herbivores, and omnivores. Modern classification has overcome the weakness of artificial classification. This classification uses evolutionary relationships between organisms and their ancestors. From the original parents, there arose new groups of organisms that underwent structural changes which enabled them to live in different habitats. This is what led to the diversity of living organisms observed today. In modern classification, organisms are placed in groups called taxa and are assigned scientific names. Thank you for watching this biology lesson. Please subscribe to this channel and other Genius channels relevant to your level of study.